Every December across Britain, we gather very small children in churches and give them a candle stuck in an orange, and then we get them to light it on fire. Why? Why do we do this? This is Christingle. It is a Church of England custom. When I was a child, I took part in a couple of Christingle services with school, because especially in the 80s, most state schools would do Church of England things. But I was raised Catholic. I am a Roman Catholic. And so I then didn't go to a Christingle service for decades. Then I started going to our local Church of England church when we moved a few years ago, and suddenly remembered about Christingle. Now, of course, I have a small child and I take him to Christingle services. But every time I go, I'm still slightly baffled. The Catholic in me is looking around me going, what is everybody doing and why are we giving flame to small children? That is the question I hope to answer with today's video. This is my Christingle from our church's Christingle service. The 3-year-old has already eaten his, but here's mine. So, as you can see, we have the orange, and we have a little booklet for the service, which also explains what each part represents. So the orange represents the earth, the globe. Then we have the red ribbon around it. This is a sign of God's love for all of us, which surrounds us. Then what we have on these cocktail sticks here is marshmallows. Some Christingles use cloves, some use other types of sweets. It varies, but at our church we always use marshmallows. Partly it helps that they're very low calorie and low sugar, because my son did eat quite a lot of spare marshmallows. They remind us that God fills the world with good things. And finally, of course, we have the candle. There we are. Which was lit during the service, as part of the service, and all the small children light their candles, and tiny children stand there with lit candles next to marshmallows, which is why I couldn't film too much during the service, because I had to make sure I was keeping an eye. And the candle represents God and Jesus, the light of the world, being born at Christmas, and is the oldest part of the Christingle. Our vicar also suggested that we could light the candle and toast the marshmallows on the candle to eat them, so I think I might do that. The Christingle service will also usually have a collection raising money for the Children's Society, which, as you can see, we also did at ours. People give donations during the service to support the work of the charity, the Children's Society. But where on earth did this come from? Why are we giving small children lighted candles in fruit? The origins of Christingle are usually traced back to an 18th century German bishop called Johannes de Watteville. I assume that's how we pronounce it. It looks like Wattville, so I assume that's Watteville. Watteville. Probably. De Watteville was a bishop in the Moravian Church. So nowadays, this is very much a Church of England tradition, as I mentioned, but it actually originates in a different Protestant church. The Moravian Brotherhood is a Protestant church that was founded in 1457 and actually predates Martin Luther and his 95 Theses. It actually predates Protestantism for the most part. It's a very, very early breakaway church that broke away from the Catholic Church even earlier than Luther did. Pastor de Watteville lived considerably later than that. It was in 1747 that during an Advent service, he gave each child who was attending a lighted candle wrapped in a red ribbon with a prayer that said, "Lord Jesus, kindle a flame in these dear children's hearts." The Moravian Church continued to do Christingle in this way for several decades and centuries subsequent, but without the orange. It was mostly a candle with a red ribbon around it. And the candle as symbolic of the light of Christ and as a clear and obvious symbol for the children of what the season was all about was really at the heart of it. Christingle was brought to the Church of England and popularised in the UK by John Pensom in the late 1960s. Pensom was fundraising for the Children's Society. This charity was formerly called the Church of England Children's Society and was renamed a bit later. And it's a charity that works with vulnerable children and young people aged 10 to 18, and it helps children who have been exploited, children in care, and young refugees. In 1968, Pensom organised a Christingle service at which children brought purses of money to donate to the charity and received an orange with a candle stuck in it in return. By 1972, the services were becoming popular enough to be noticed by the Times newspaper. So this seems to be where the orange comes in, and then the cloves or sweets as well. Most of the sites and resources providing information on Christingle say that no one is quite sure where the orange came from. One suggested that it might be a form of scented pomander. That's an orange studded with cloves, which is one form of a pomander. Usually that's a ball containing perfumes worn around the neck to avoid pestilence or bad smells. But a pomander is far older than the 1960s. By the 1960s, we had deodorant. That doesn't seem super likely. There is a connection of oranges and cloves that goes back, perhaps, to the pomander. That doesn't seem very likely to me as an origin for Christingle. I think it's got much more to do with the connection between oranges and Christmas in the UK. Oranges are grown in warmer climates than the UK. They grow very well around the Mediterranean. So in centuries past, before we had hothouses and lots of trade networks, oranges would be available because we did have trade networks with the Mediterranean. People would have been able to get hold of oranges, but they would have been more of a luxury. They would have been more expensive because you can't grow them here, at least not without quite a lot of technology, or at least a hothouse. Oranges have been a typical present from St. Nicholas in various parts of Europe since at least the 17th century. In the 1770s, a young curate in Oxford noted that his rather large Christmas dinner included an orange pudding with the first course. So there's a connection between oranges and Christmas, partly because oranges are a luxury item and Christmas is a time for feasting and luxury. From the 18th century in Britain, oranges were sometimes used, as well as apples, to decorate the greenery brought in for Christmas. Now, apples do grow here very well, of course. They harvest in the autumn, so if you've harvested them in the autumn and managed to preserve them, they're quite useful at Christmas. Apples and oranges together seem to have been quite a popular Christmas decoration. I guess combining the fruit that's recently been harvested with a luxury item that's been imported. Victorian periodical Notes and Queries observed that children wassailing in Huddersfield carried large bunches of evergreens hung with apples and oranges. So they were going around the houses singing and then asking for a treat or a bit of money, and they would carry apples and oranges with their evergreens with them. Oranges with cloves stuck in them are also associated with New Year's. An untitled book from the reign of Queen Anne, who reigned 1707 to 1714, noted that on the first day of January, children, to their inexpressible joy, will be dressed in their best bibs and aprons, and may be seen handed along the streets, so walking along the streets, some bearing Kentish pippins, others oranges stuck with cloves, in order to crave a blessing of their godfathers and godmothers. So the connection between oranges and cloves has a connection with Christmas and New Year's as well. In 1909, Northumbrian writer Hastings M. Neville observed that children in the north of England would sing songs at people's doors for Hogmanay. That is New Year's Eve, and it's primarily a Scottish custom, but in the north of England they would do it as well. And they would receive a coin, an orange, and a kind word. And the association of oranges with Christmas has a long tradition that still continues to this day. All my life, an orange has been a traditional gift for Father Christmas to leave in my stocking. Our stockings growing up were either one of Dad's socks or then these beautiful handmade ones one of my aunts gave us with our names on them. And they're just about the right size for a satsuma and a pound coin to go in the bottom of them. So that is quite a long-standing tradition. Nowadays, sometimes it'll be a Terry's chocolate orange instead of an actual orange, but the association of oranges and Christmas is really quite strong in this country. The custom of leaving an orange in the stocking goes back to at least the 19th century. Notes and Queries observed that in County Durham, on Christmas Eve, each child hangs up one of its stockings in a place where it can be easily reached, in order that Santa Cruz, they don't seem to have quite understood Santa Claus, Father Christmas, which is which, and what's going on, but anyway, the Holy Cross may come into the bedroom during the night and deposit some little present in it. And when the child wakens in the morning, sure as fate, in the stocking is a Christmas pie, a Yule dough, which is a bit of rich paste rolled out, cut and baked in the shape of a little baby with currants for eyes. That sounds creepy, quite frankly. A packet of figs, raisins, bullets, an orange, a ball, a top, or some other article, brought by the mysterious nocturnal visitor who has come with light and gentle step when the children were fast asleep. So this is obviously where hanging up a Christmas stocking started to become popular in the UK. When I was little, we always hung our stockings, or put Dad's sock, at the end of our bed rather than downstairs. And you'll see that if you watch the British movie Arthur Christmas, which was made a few years ago, you'll notice that most of the British kids have got stockings in their bedroom. And Father Christmas is actually coming into their bedroom rather than by the mantelpiece. Although we hang ours by the mantelpiece now because my husband is American. I think this is where Pensom got the idea for the orange from, because oranges are associated with Christmas and with children. The presents that St. Nicholas or Father Christmas, whichever term we're using, chooses to bring to the children often traditionally include an orange. So when he's setting up this service for children, I assume that was what gave him the idea to include an orange in it. that an orange is such a traditional Christmas present for children. And then, of course, each element of the Christingle is given some symbolism. But the children can also eat the orange and the sweets after the Christingle service, as they do enthusiastically. So I can only assume that Pensom somehow got the idea because of the association between oranges and children and Christmas in the UK. And that's how he ended up adding an orange to the Moravian tradition of the candle with the red ribbon around it to symbolise the light of Christ at Christmas. I don't know if originally it might have been cloves and then people started to use sweets because they're a bit more popular and maybe a bit cheaper and easier to get hold of as well. So that's my explanation. But does anyone know of an alternative explanation? Does anyone know where the orange came from? Was it used in the Moravian church? Has anyone been to a Moravian Christingle service and does it include an orange? If so, please do let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like. If you'd like to support the channel, then you can buy my book, Creepy Classics, Ghost Stories from Ancient Rome from Amazon, or just like and share this video with anyone who you think might be interested. And until next time, happy holidays!
I'm not very good at toasting marshmallows. That was good. Not sure you're supposed to actually set them on fire, but I don't seem able to do it any other way. There we go. Oh, no. All gone.